This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 488 for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. The podcast is available across all major podcasting platforms, including YouTube. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing wherever you're listening to this. This is our annual Holiday Roundtable episode, which means that we have a full house. Back on the roundtable this year, Stephen, who you can find at Stephen ESC, was last on 487 last week. He's not sick of me yet. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I have a large glass of rum in front of me, and I'm set to enjoy the evening, especially because James the Civilian has made a triumphant return, last on TCC 474, which was the Holiday Roundtable from 2023. Welcome back, my friend.
Hello, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course, man. And we get to see each other about once a month, which is fantastic. And much better to catch up monthly than to catch up yearly on the podcast.
Absolutely, I agree.
But speaking of a hot minute, Lou Page, busy zombie lord and a member of Zombies Ate My Podcast, last seen on the Citadel Cafe, episode 458, the Holiday Roundtable from 2022. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Oh my God, it feels like it's been way too long.
It has been too long. And we've touched base a little bit via Discord DM and like caught up and stuff via text over the years, plural.
Yeah.
But after someone that's been on the show like weekly almost for or monthly, I think for years, it was a big shift as a whole lot of things changed in 2020 to 2022 changed a lot of things for everybody. So keeping regular guests on the show became a wee bit challenging.
Just a little.
And we will also be joined later on by Alastair McFly from Long Range Sensors. He'll be by a bit later on this evening. He was last on the roundtable from 2023 as well, episode 474. And Ryan Murphy, who was on the show this year on 476, our most anticipated games of 2024, will be joining a bit later as well. Fingers crossed. There may be some shenanigans with kids refusing to go to bed, at which point Ryan may not be able to make it. But we'll keep an eye out for both of those folks when they get around to joining the live chat. And a shout out and thank you to Johnny Pixelriffs, my co-host on the Spawn Chunks, who joined me a couple of times this year on episodes on the Avatar: The Last Airbender series on Netflix, as well as Rings of Power Season 2 on Amazon Prime. Tonight's recording time was just a wee bit late for him in the UK. We are already well into the evening here in Nova Scotia, and it's the middle of the night for Johnny, so he wasn't able to make it. But I have been busy recording extra stuff with Johnny this week. That's actually the nerdy stuff that I'm going to be talking about to kick things off on the show. We've got 2 podcasts that have been pre-recorded for the Spawn Chunks, my podcast about Minecraft. Those will go out on the 23rd and on the 30th of this month. And I've also been doing streams and trying to figure out what's happening over the next week or so. Christmas is in the middle of the week this year, so it's kind of got a weird notch cut out of my my streaming schedule. I do plan on streaming a bit more over the holidays, but we'll see how that lands in terms of family schedules and busyness and all that kind of stuff. I'm hoping to stream this weekend, but we've also got stuff to get ready for Christmas yet, and also some bad weather coming this way. So, I mean, one may beget the other. If I cannot go around and scramble getting ready for Christmas due to snow, then streaming might be the best course of action. We'll have to see what comes down the tubes in the weather. But I've already broken the cardinal rule. We're talking about winter weather, and it's not even winter yet.
And I didn't even start that.
No, wasn't you this time, or Brockett. Brockett's usually the other culprit that ignores the golden rule of not talking about the weather, which we've had since I started the show, because when it was just Peyton, myself, and Chad, all 3 Maritimers from Halifax, Dartmouth area. Well, I mean, Peyton's originally from Newfoundland, but everybody was living here for at least 10 years. And weather just seems to be the thing that people talk about for small talk around here. And so we had to put in writing in the show notes, which has stayed for the last 13 years. Don't do it. Don't talk about the weather, because you will be here for 15 minutes talking about the weather instead of some nerdy stuff. But I've been playing a lot of Minecraft because of the new update. There was a new update in Minecraft, and the Satisfactory Christmas event, the Fixmas event, is still going on. So I think I'm going to be back in Satisfactory tomorrow, if I remember correctly. So that's my plan. I'd like to have another game in the rotation over the holidays, something chill that doesn't require a lot of like action or anything like that. Maybe something cozy like Stardew Valley that I've never tried, and something like that. But I've not pulled the trigger on any of those like pixel games. I tend to want to try new things outside of Minecraft. If it's a new game like Satisfactory, I tend to want to have like something cool in like Unreal Engine 5 as opposed to more pixel graphics, because I kind of get enough of that from Minecraft. Even though Minecraft is 3D, I find that I'm a little bit more on the modern graphics kick when it comes to stretching my legs. And I know it's been a minute, Lou, since you've been on the show. So outside of Zombies Ate My Podcast, like what has been on your nerdy plate as of late?
We just finished watching Cross on Amazon, based on the James Patterson novels.
Oh, cool.
The first season just hit Amazon, and I've been watching. I haven't finished it yet, but there's that Secret Level show on Amazon as well. It's sort of like what is it? Love, Sex, Robots, but instead each one is themed after a game.
Yeah, it's the same creator. It's Tim Miller. Yeah, created Love, Death, and Robots. Is
Love, Death, and Robots.
You were close, but not close. It's too many
Yeah.
zombies, right? It's
Yeah.
rot in your brain.
Yeah.
And those are always really cool. They're anthology series, and that's what the Secret Level is. I've been watching it as well.
Hey, have you? Okay, because my big thing is I've been waiting for the Mega Man episode, and that came out yesterday, and I was like, "Yay, Mega Man!" And it's 9 minutes. I was like, "Come on, really?"
Oh, that sucks. Was it a good 9 minutes? No spoilers,
Oh,
but like, was
it's
it
an
good?
excellent 9 minutes, and when it's over, you're like, "Wait, you could turn this into a show? You could."
The budgets for those shorts are probably a lot larger than anyone wants to admit. It's probably a lot.
Oh yeah,
Because I've watched the first one. I watched the Dungeons and Dragons short, which that wasn't terribly short. It was like 15 minutes at least, but it was like like a long trailer for a video game, like a Dragon Age
Mhm.
or
Yep.
Elden Ring or something like that. It was very trailery, even though there was some story, there was some decent acting. I thought the animation was really cool, and probably a lot more Easter eggs in it for people that are steeped in Dungeons and Dragons.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the fireball joke though. like that was cool.
My biggest take from it is I've watched. They put out, I think it was 8 episodes last week, and then this week they put out, I think it was like the last 6 or 7. And I haven't watched all of them yet, but they're supposed to all be based on video games, and there's at least 4 episodes that I've watched and I've been like, I don't know what game this is based on, and if I don't know what game this is based on, that's a problem because I know a lot of games.
Well, one of them is gone. Is it Concord?
Yes.
An arena shooter, like a 5v5 arena shooter, and it was closed down in like September.
Yeah.
It was going, and I mean the animation for this series would have started a long time ago to get animation done. It would have been a year or two ago at least. So they were anticipating this to be this hit of a game, and it was not. So
No.
it's dead. And so the only remnant of this game is the short in Secret Level.
Yeah. There was one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of neat, but I don't know what this game is based on. And apparently it's Amazon's MMO. I had to look it up.
Oh.
I was like, oh, this is why I don't know. This is why I didn't know what this was. I didn't even know this was still a thing.
What is Amazon's? Isn't
New
New
World?
World
Yeah.
Atrium or
Yeah.
something like that? Oh, that's got
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger in it. Interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Actually enjoyed the episode though. It was pretty fun, and the quality of the animation was unreal. It was very, very impressive. It's like, as you were saying, the budget for these shorts it's clearly very high.
Have you seen several of them, Stephen?
Yes, we've seen. I shouldn't say several. We've seen 4 of them, and the fourth one, the Unreal Tournament, is that was quite a good one. We thought
I think
involves
that was my
mining robots.
that's got to be up there with one of my favorites of the batch. And I don't really like Unreal Tournament, so I went in with like no expectations, and I was like, oh, they were actually trying to tell a story here.
Mm-hmm.
I played the crap out of Unreal Tournament.
And I'm actually unfamiliar with all of these games other than Dungeons and Dragons. So for me, they're all other than Mega Man, which I haven't gotten to yet. They're pretty much all going to be just shorts for me. Like I don't.
Yeah.
All of the Easter eggs that Joel was talking about, they're going to be completely lost on me. But so far, I've enjoyed every one of them. Some feel like they're exactly the right length. Other ones feel like they could have been, please give me another 10 minutes at least, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so far so good.
I think the one that I've seen the most advertisements for in terms of like creator reactions, like social media posts and stuff promoting it, has been the Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2.
Yep.
That's the one where people just seem to be visually and viscerally reacting to whatever's happening on the screen. It seems to be very, I don't want to say, I mean, it's violent, but it seems to be what people expected out of a Warhammer short.
Warhammer fans are hardcore, so that's probably their most watched episode.
Have you seen any of these, James?
No, I haven't. In fact, I don't think I've even heard of this show. I may have to go check it out.
So this is on Prime Video, and did you ever catch any of the Love, Death, and Robots shorts on Netflix?
I didn't either, actually. No, I didn't.
Man, like knowing all the stuff that you're into, 100% recommend all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, the Love, Death, and Robots are not really based on any existing IPs. The Secret Level stuff has like the existing IP thing going for it. But the Love, Death, and Robots was just a series of shorts with, I think the only theme that these animation houses were given was Love, Death, and Robots. Like that was the only prompt. And then they could basically come up with whatever story they wanted.
Several of them were taken from short stories written by sci-fi authors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where several of them came from.
I never really paid attention, but sorry, Joel, going back to what you said, those 3 themes, was it had to involve all 3 themes, or could just basically pick one? It's been a while since I've seen them, so I can't remember.
I think they had to have like 2.
Oh, that would make more sense. Because I don't remember anyone sticking out as like only having one. Like if there was robots in it, there was more happening than just robots, right? It was something more than that.
Yeah, and I remember some not having robots. Either way, I was just curious if you knew sort of the specifics around, I guess, the requirements for them. Either way, it's James. It's a great series, and like Joel was saying, they're all over the place in terms of themes, but they're all quite short. So even if you just wanted something quick to watch, 15 minutes, and you don't have to watch them in order really either. They don't feed into each other. So if you wanted to pick a 15-minute one day and then one that's closer to a half hour another day, even though they're out of order, highly recommended.
Hey, I'll have to check it out.
Each episode is connected to one or more of the 3 titular concepts. So it was one or more was basically the idea behind it. And I think a lot of studios went to more than one because I think it'd be more interesting. I remember one in particular that had like farmers and mech suits, and I really liked that one because it really felt like a video game that I would probably want to play. And there was another one that was about 3 little robots, I think, that was also pretty poignant. It looked like a Pixar short, like it was a little bit more bright.
That one had multiple episodes. Those characters returned, I think, 2 or 3 times.
And then the first one, not necessarily like the first in order, but like the first in its listing on Netflix, was like a really violent cage fight between, I think it was a girl and a monster or something. And either she was cybernetic or like, anyway, it was wild how well animated it was, and over too soon because of probably how much it costs. But yeah, it was some really, really cool stuff in there. And it's been a while because I think the last anthology that I looked at and did not finish, we were just talking about actually over beer a couple of weeks ago, guys, was the Star Wars Visions. And I did not watch season 2 because I had unsubscribed to Disney Plus after I finished The Acolyte, and I have not yet returned to it. Although it's on my list because apparently Skeleton Crew is pretty good. the second season of Visions is also up there for people looking for animated anthologies. I liked the first season. Not everything was my cup of tea. Some of them were a little bit too kiddie and too musical for me. But I guess that's
Yeah.
the beauty of just like sending it around to different houses around, anime houses around the globe. It's just like you get kind of something different depending on what you do. So for me, I've also finished up the Superman and Lois series, and I won't get into great detail because I think there's just a little bit too much to unpack in a broad roundtable show like this. But I will give a brief recommendation in that I really enjoyed it, and I am sad that I kind of fell off. And I don't know if it was necessarily that the show wasn't grabbing me. I know I had some complaints about season 1 that they did kind of pick up and fix in the sequential seasons. But I also know that it was, I think, on Crave in Canada for me to watch it, and really disliked that app and disliked the service and found it expensive. So I basically, I think it was access, not necessarily the quality of the show. There are still some moments when it's pretty much a WB show and you can feel it, but by and large, it was the best of the WB shows, the Arrowverse shows. Really good, worth watching. Heavier topics than you expect. I almost want to give people a warning. Like if you've got some sensitive things that have happened in your life, you might relate hard to this show. They tackle some serious stuff and they do it very well. And I also really like Tyler Hoechlin as Clark. The Superman stuff is good, but his Clark, specifically because he gets to embody the Clark when there's people that know he's Superman. Like he's got kids in this, so it's Lois and his 2 boys, Jordan and Jonathan, and obviously they all know that he's Superman. So there's Clark being a goober out in public, but then there's Clark at home with the family who is still wearing the glasses, but is also Superman, but is also Clark. And he really does, like, there's 3. There's Superman, there's Clark at home, and then there's Clark on the streets. And he really does a good job of not only just the balance between all 3, but the battle between all 3 when like he wants to be one more than the other. And I highly recommend it. It's a good watch. There's only 4 seasons. They're short, 10 to 15 episodes. And I spent an embarrassing amount of time watching it over the last month.
I'll take that as a recommendation because I kind of fell off the Arrowverse stuff when I like the end of Flash. I think I gave up. I was like,
yeah,
I can't watch this anymore. And so I never moved on to that show. So you saying it's good makes me lean more into, I think it's all on Netflix.
it might be in America. Yeah, it could be. I know that Hoechlin is the Superman from Supergirl. So you'd be familiar with him if you've seen Supergirl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, rumor is that we're going to get a Superman movie trailer tomorrow.
A teaser trailer. I've seen the teaser announcement. I've seen the teaser trailer for the teaser trailer. And I've heard a lot of people talking about the teaser trailer, almost to the point where I would believe it when I see it, Lou. But yes, we're getting a teaser trailer tomorrow. I will be surprised if the teaser is revealing in any way. I am skeptical. And part of that is James Gunn. I'm trying to have an open mind, but the last several films that I've seen that were James Gunn's films, I did not like. And Superman is my favorite superhero, and the fact that James Gunn is at the helm is, for me, concerning. Other people that are fans of James Gunn are probably happy about it. I don't know about you guys. It could be just confirmation bias because of the content that I consume online, but I have seen so many celebrities, friends of James Gunn himself, DC, just gushing about how good and how different and how amazing a job James Gunn has done on this film and how it really embodies exactly the character that is Superman. It has been endless the last 2 weeks, to the point where you guys are talking an awful lot about it without showing anything. And I'm really kind of concerned. Does anybody else get that feeling? Like, Lou, are you feeling like it's a little bit too much icing?
See, you and I always tackle this from a different thing. I like James Gunn's work. But my understanding from things I've read is that his number one goal going into this was Superman does not kill anybody ever if he can help it.
Yeah.
And so I believe that that's the plot point of the story, the actual movie.
I mean, that would make sense, and that's fine by me. Like that's. I mean, I don't. Well, I guess Reeves killed Zod in his movies. In Superman 2, Zod got thrown into a pit.
Yeah.
He was a supervillain. So
right.
I mean, it gets a pass for me, right?
Yeah. My understanding is the rumor I've heard is that the plot revolves around some heroes and vigilantes are becoming much, much more violent to the point of killing suspects. And Superman is gone out of his way to make sure he doesn't do that. And now people are calling him out as in he's not doing his job.
In the movie.
That's the rumor I've heard, that's part of the plot. It's just a rumor. It's just a rumor. But I heard that and I was like, that could be interesting.
I mean, it's a direct response to the criticism from the Zack Snyder film when Cavill snaps.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other characters. When Superman snaps Zod's neck in the battle in Metropolis, and people would say he would never do that. But I think that I liked Man of Steel, and part of it is like, obviously I really enjoy Cavill, but the subsequent movies I did not enjoy. Like I've really decided that Zack Snyder is also in a camp of like, if his name's on a film, I'm probably just not going to watch it. Unless I hear a lot of recommendations from people I trust.
100%.
Yeah, it's been rough. I mean, Steven, you and I watched Rebel Moon Part 1, I think.
I couldn't make it 10 minutes.
Yeah, we did. We made it the whole Part 1, and I mean, there's a whole episode of the Citadel Cafe about it, and it was, I mean, I don't know how many times I swore, but it was more than normal.
It's very pretty, very pretty. And I kept saying I was going to watch the second one just to kind of maybe give it another shot, but I never got around to watching it.
I started it. I don't know why I started it. I think it was one of those nights where I couldn't sleep. I just wanted something that I didn't care if I fell asleep during. And it honestly, like, I couldn't remember what happened in the first part. And then the second part was like, am I watching the first part again? Because it was the same story over again. I was like, but didn't we already do this? It was like, there's a big bad ship coming for a small colony on a desert planet. Like, they did this already, you know? So I wasn't really sure. The other thing that I tried and really like was clamoring for the remote to turn it off was the Ezra Miller Flash movie that's also on Netflix right now, which again, James Gunn gave it a thumbs up and said this is the best.
He had to. They just gave him DC. So and that most of that movie, I understand, was half that movie, if not more, was already in pre-production, and they could not stop it. They'd already spent way too much money to stop it.
They got rid of, I'm going to mess it up, either Batwoman or Batgirl. I forget what it's called. And that was done. And so they like the excuse they gave, where they used that as a tax write-off. They could have done exactly the same thing. I mean, if they were creating this world where so many timelines were going to overlap and you're bringing people in, and like it didn't necessarily have to be made at all. I mean, the woman who ended up playing Supergirl in that, her contract got canceled, or she didn't have a contract or something. So it's like it almost didn't even need to happen. Yeah, but going back to what you said, Joel, like I noticed out of the blue just a lot of James Gunn is a great guy posts on Instagram and TikTok as well. And I don't even go looking for that stuff. So it was just sort of unsolicited James Gunn patting on the back. So I'm hoping hoping that means it is good and not that they're really just trying to get everyone's butts into the theaters before people find out it's horrible.
Look, like that, it seems like that might be what they're doing. I mean, it'll become more clear the closer to the release date, which I think is June of 2025. It's like a summer blockbuster release, which makes sense. But I mean, the marketing budget for it, I'm sure, is large, and we'll have to see what's happening. I mean, Nathan Fillion is in it. I don't remember who he played.
He's playing one of the Green Lanterns. He's playing the goofy guy that's the Green Lantern.
Really? Oh,
yeah. He's playing Guy Gardner.
Okay, I'm surprised that they went Green Lantern with him. I thought they would have cast somebody else, because everybody else that's cast is really young. You know, you start to feel old when you're seeing like the casting for Superman. You're like, he is a child. You're like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm just an old man. Because I mean, he looks the part. I mean, Cornsweet, I think is his name, or Cornsweet. he looks like a good Superman candidate, but I haven't seen him acting in anything. But apparently he was cast as Superman while he was filming Twisters, and the cast of Twisters was giving him not a hard time, but like sort of teasing him about like the fact that he's the new Superman, and all of a sudden he would just like disappear from set to take like private phone calls and stuff, and he's like, already pulling like the Clark Kent Superman thing. James, have you heard much about the new Superman film?
I've actually gone on a bit of a social media diet the last few weeks.
Oh, okay.
I've essentially cut out almost all social media except a little bit of YouTube. So I'm a little out of touch, it feels. I have not heard of the teaser for the new Superman movie either. I think I maybe had heard rumblings that James Gunn was doing a new movie. I'm a bit more like you, Joel, in terms of the James Gunn camp. I did like Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which I think some of them involved him. But yeah, some of his other stuff, I'm a little not so sure.
I liked the first Guardians, but everything else since.
Yeah, the first was good. I have to eat some crow too. That first Guardians of the Galaxy movie was the one I thought going into it was that was going to be the Marvel movie that flopped. And I came out of that movie thinking to myself, that was great. So there's what I know. In terms of myself, my recent viewing has been Star Trek. Actually, the last season of Star Trek Lower Decks is on right now, and actually, at the time of this recording, the final episode is getting ready to premiere in the next day or so. And I've also been watching some old Star Trek, just because I decided I'm going to watch Star Trek Voyager from the beginning. Don't know why. I hadn't watched it in a long time. So my recent viewing's been mostly Star Trek, actually.
I was watching, I think it was, again, more social media stuff where it was an interview with a couple of the guys from Voyager and Jonathan Frakes, who I will watch in any interview. I find him incredibly engaging. Johnny and I on the Spawn Chunks have talked about this in the render distance of just how charismatic Jonathan Frakes is. And he was talking about the techniques that they use to film certain things in Star Trek. And he was talking about the crossover between Lower Decks and, is it Strange New Worlds that they were on?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So he directed a couple of the episodes. And some of the other people in the round table, I think it was the actor that played Quark on Deep Space Nine was there too. They were asking Franks about that, and he was saying like two things that I never thought was going to happen in Star Trek was that the actors from the cartoon were ad-libbing on the set of Strange New Worlds, and everybody else in that podcast was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like when we were filming Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, TNG, Voyager, it was like word for word script. Like you did not deviate from what they had written in the script. That like it was gold. The lines that you were to deliver.
Dead letter perfect is how they called it.
You're right. Yeah, that's the term that they used. And the other thing, which was a really funny story, was talking about like the volume, about filming in the volume, which we all heard about when The Mandalorian came out. And it's this digital screen that projects the environment. And he was talking about explaining it, to what it is to a couple of people that didn't know at the table. And then he kind of grinned and says, well, once Star Wars had it, you knew Star Trek had to get it. It was like the grass is always greener, the neighbors competing for the bigger lawnmower sort of deal. And I thought it was pretty funny. The smirk on his face is like, once we heard about it, we had to have it. I thought that was pretty good.
He had an interesting comment too about because they asked him, how does it change directing and how does it change acting on the set having that big screen? And he said it's actually significantly easier because now the actors have something they can see, whereas before it was just a green screen. It's like, okay, like here's a big green screen and like pretend that it's like a forest or whatever. And now with the volume, like now the actors actually have something to play off of and to interact with in a way. So I thought that was an interesting change to how you direct and act.
Yeah, no more tennis balls on sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'll use Lord of the Rings as an example because I don't remember any creature names from Star Wars, but like this is an Oliphant. It's running at you. Like that is what's coming at you. So like act accordingly, as opposed to like, here's your line of sight for like this monster and it's like a green tennis ball on a stick or whatever. They probably could have used that in, I mean, obviously the technology didn't exist, but in the prequels for Star Wars, I remember the actors talking about how challenging it was when you're like jumping over a box that's supposed to be, you know, a creature, and then you're talking to a stick that's supposed to be another creature, and it's all just imaginary until they do the final rendering and all the comp work later on. It's really interesting to see how it's gone from Lord of the Rings mixing green screen, CGI, and live action models to now in Mandalorian and other shows using the volume for like just expansive, like lit scenes where the actors feel much more part of it. Like there's some, I could always tell, even as good as a green screen could get, you could always feel like the lighting just wasn't quite right on a lot of stuff, especially for TV. There are some scenes even from Superman and Lois where I was like, that is actually really good CG for a TV show. Like for something that's uh not low budget, but like has lower expectations compared to say like a feature film. I was actually pretty impressed because Doomsday is in Superman and Lois. Not a giant spoiler, but like there's a lot of stuff that has to happen because Doomsday is a completely CG character, just like he would have been in the movies too with the Zack Snyder version. And they did a really good job with it. There were some sections where you're like, I mean, that's a little cartoony, but like it was, you're also thinking like, well, it's TV. But there was at first appearances in any of the money shots, you're like, that looks remarkably good. And same with all the superpowers and stuff too. That stuff has always been really good, especially the slow motion. I remember in Smallville, they did everything in slow motion in Smallville because it just looked better than the super speed. And in not Superman, not Lois and Clark, but Superman and Lois, um, the slow motion that they do is fantastic, and they don't overuse it. It's meant like to tell part of the story or to be poignant, as opposed to just like every superhero thing being in slow motion. And it's really well done. And I like the way that they handle it in that show. So, James, with Lower Decks, is that finished now? Like series complete, or is it just the season that's done?
It's going to be series complete. I think the last episode comes out this week. It'll be 5 seasons, and that'll be it.
I didn't know that the season had started, so I'm gonna have to. I know what I'll be watching over the holidays now.
Yeah, it's been a fun season. If you're a fan of the show, I would definitely recommend it. There are definitely some good, almost like meta callbacks to the other shows.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give anything away.
Anytime someone has asked me, what's something that I should watch that nobody's watching, I'm like, Lower Decks. They're like, I don't like Star Trek. Doesn't matter. Watch it.
Oh yeah, I've said on this show a few times over the years that Star Trek Lower Decks is my wife's Star Trek. This is the Star Trek that got her into the rest of it. Like she knew a bit of it from like me having it on and her being in the background. Like she picked up on bits and pieces of it. But Lower Decks was her Star Trek. This is the one that got her into it. She watches every episode. So I totally agree with the recommendation. This is a show you should be watching.
It's been on my list, and I recently resubscribed to Paramount Plus via my Apple TV Plus subscription because my dad and the family that are on the family sharing plan for that, because I do the Apple One subscription, uh, they watch Yellowstone, the Kevin Costner show. And it came back for the 6th and final season or 7th final season this fall. And so Dad was like, "That's what it's on in Canada. Can we resub to that channel so we all have it on Apple TV?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I remembered that in doing so, it also gives me access to a bunch of Paramount Plus stuff that I wasn't missing, but also didn't have access to, so it wasn't thinking about streaming. And Star Trek is one of them.
I will say, because I think Joel, maybe correct me if I'm wrong here. I think one of your initial concerns about Lower Decks was like, and I know a few people, including myself, had this concern going into it. It'd be basically Star Trek, but Rick and Morty, because Mike McMahon is from Rick and Morty.
Yes.
I will say, get through the first couple episodes. Like, give it a chance. Power through the first few episodes. There is maybe a little bit of that, but the show, like all Star Trek series, finds its footing after so long and really finds its own voice. So I know you had that concern before. If you're going to go back to it, give it a couple episodes.
Cool. I think it's been at least a couple of seasons, if not a couple of years, since you and I have talked about it. So yeah, I'll put it on the list.
And if you're in the mood for live action, Stranger New Worlds is probably my second favorite Star Trek thing going on right now.
I have to admit my shame. I have not watched Strange New Worlds yet. It's on my 2025 to-do list.
Oh, if you didn't like Discovery, Strange New Worlds is everything you wanted Discovery to be.
That's exactly the boat I'm in, so that's great.
Yeah, I didn't finish Discovery.
I didn't either.
I want to as a completionist because I definitely got like more than 70% of the way through. So like I should probably go back and finish it. I watched the first season of Strange New Worlds. I'm pretty sure I finished it. I know I fell off on the musical episode. That's where I was just like, I am not in the mood for this right now. And unfortunately, that kind of got me out of the habit.
Yeah.
And I did remember enjoying the rest of the season, but I did have to go back to it.
That was the one episode I watched it, but my wife was like, nope, she's a diehard Trekkie. She's like, I hate musicals. We're not watching that episode. Just fill me in on what I missed.
Read the synopsis. Yeah. Steven, is there anything on your to-watch list that you're looking forward to getting to over the holidays?
Nothing hardcore planned over the holidays, other than season 2 of Silo is back, is on, and we've been sort of picking away through that. So we're an episode behind right now, but that's basically what we've got on the plan for the holidays. So that, and we're rewatching Arcane, the second season of Arcane, just because we plowed through it the first time we watched it, just because of family schedule and things. We only had pockets of time we could do it, so we would watch 2 or 3 episodes in a row. So we're going back and taking our time. But then, other than that, we're looking probably to watch a couple of Christmas movies that we watch every year. So nothing really hardcore, like on the nerdy side of things that we're plowing through. It's
what's on the Christmas list, like the Christmas movies?
The main one that we watch every year, it's I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's Klaus. It's the Netflix animated one, and ever since we saw that, it's been our favorite. So it's the one we make sure we watch every single year.
I've heard good things.
Oh my goodness! If you haven't seen it, the character design alone, from your perspective and your professional history, you'd love it. It's so good, and it's like it's been done numerous times, but it's sort of a Santa Claus origin story. But I think they handled it really, really well in terms of the location they picked, and then just how the Christmas spirit becomes the catalyst. Even before Christmas was a thing, the Christmas spirit or the holiday spirit becomes the catalyst that sort of gives the origin. Like if you're going to watch it, I don't want to spoil it because it's got some fun magical moments in it that I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet.
That's good to know. I've been tasked with picking out some Christmas movies. Movie picking skills over the last month or so have been, I would say, bad luck. I normally have better luck than this, but there's been some bad luck. Not necessarily with Christmas movies, but like there's just been bad luck movie selection in the last little while. So whatever you do, folks, do not watch Lonely Planet on Netflix. Zero. Do not. 0 out of 10. Really, really poorly written film. It was what I picked because I thought I'll just bookmark it and that's what we'll watch. And bad idea. And I have yet to live that one down. So when it comes to Christmas movies that have, I don't want to say higher stakes, but like you kind of really want to have a good time with them, unless it's so terrible that you're making fun of it. But I tend to not watch those kind of movies. So good to know that Klaus is on the thumbs up list.
It's on the high list for us, and you can blame me if it doesn't land. You can say, well, Steven said it was amazing.
If children are not involved, I can recommend Violent Night.
I've seen that movie. It's fantastic. That's a great movie.
Die Hard with Santa.
Is that Joel?
It's the guy from Stranger Things.
Guy from Stranger Things.
Hopper. The guy who plays Hopper.
Yeah. He's Santa.
Okay.
I actually saw the trailer for that now that you're mentioning it, and I remember thinking, That looks better than I thought it would. So it's actually pretty decent.
It's I went into it skeptic about, okay, I'll give this a shot, and it literally is like they do it's not much to spoil, but in the beginning, Santa's upset because basically kids don't want toys anymore. He's dropping off Amazon gift cards and stuff like that, and he's like, ugh, really? And he meets a little girl who's in a hostage situation, and he gets stuck there and has to save her, and that's the premise of the movie.
Is it dumb amazing, or is it actually surprisingly pretty darn good?
It's surprisingly pretty darn good.
Huh.
I second this recommendation. Fantastic.
All right.
There's even a little bit of Home Alone involved in it, where you're like, oh my God, really? They're going to do that? Okay, here we go.
I thought there was another Silent Night movie.
There is. There's another one. Yeah, Silent Night. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, Joel Kinnaman.
Is that the one with that was done by John Woo?
I want to say yes, it is. Yep, director John Woo.
I have not seen that yet.
It's not high on my list. When I saw the trailer, I was like, "This is not for me. Just not at all for me." It does, and the one with, is it Dennis Hopper is the character name, or is that the actor's name?
Hopper is the name of the sheriff in Stranger Things.
David Harbour is the actor's name. Yeah, and he plays Hopper in Stranger Things.
Yeah, he's the Red Guardian for Marvel, right? That's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I think he was Hellboy as well, wasn't
he? Yeah, one of the more recent ones, I think. Yeah,
I liked his Hellboy. Yeah,
and they're already moved on to having another guy as him.
Oh, is Hellboy?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's already another live action one that already came out and died, and another guy played him in it.
Who's the new guy for Hellboy?
He was like a nobody. I had no idea who this guy was. I had to literally look it up and be like, okay, this is budget Hellboy. Okay, here we go. I have not watched it yet either.
Oh, I see. I thought you guys said Silent Night for the both films. So Violent Night is the one.
Violent Night.
Okay, and then Silent Night is the other one. Wow, like they're splitting hairs here on on the Christmas movie title puns, right? Wow.
Well, there's only so many you can do.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I know Die Hard is on my list. I mean, it's always been a good Christmas movie, but I have not watched Die Hard in a while. It's been a minute. So that I think is on the list this year. And I do always watch The Muppet Christmas Carol. I know I've mentioned that before in the show. But I really like it. Although this year I don't have a Disney subscription. So if I guess decide to sub to Disney before Christmas, then maybe I'll watch it. But like, I'm not really jonesing to spend more money on Disney because I don't really find they have a lot to offer these days. So I might go without, which is going to be weird.
If it wasn't for the kid, we wouldn't have it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what other ones that I normally watch. I do like cartoons. I do like the Prep and Landing and Mickey's Christmas Carol and the one where Chip and Dale get into the tree and Pluto tries to get them. Like some of the classics, right? Like that kind of stuff. But you can probably find those on YouTube. I know you can watch the Muppet Family Christmas on YouTube, the television special that came out in like 1987 or something like that. You can watch on YouTube because I think it is on Disney Plus, but you have to kind of go like into the settings to watch the ones with the right music because the rights for certain songs were not captured by Disney when they bought the Muppets back in the late 90s. And what was the other thing that you had to do? There's also an edit of the Muppet Christmas Carol. They removed a song from that too because Bob Iger thought it was boring or some bullshit. And it's a really poignant song for the story. And so if you're watching the Muppet Christmas Carol on Disney Plus, you have to go into like the extras and then scroll down to the full version. Like they have it in like title quotes, the full version or uncut version of the movie. And you can watch it with the actual love song that's in the middle of it, which is important, I think. It's not the best song, but it's still the lyrics and what's happening emotionally is key to later events in the story. So the fact that they cut it was just stupid. I don't like it when they mess with the cuts of movies after the fact. I mean, extended cuts, sure, maybe let me know it's an extended cut, but don't alter it without telling me that it's been an altered version, because then you're in the middle of it and you're like, I've seen this movie like every year for the last 20 years. Why'd you change it, Disney? Like, why is it not the same? I'm watching it because I want the same. And I hope that that's not a trend. Like, I don't want edited versions of things. Lou, do you have any games on your horizon for the holiday break?
Not really. I wish I did. I have not had the game time I used to. Uh, I have a Steam Deck, so I'll probably be lugging that around as we go visit family members, and that'll probably just be playing something mindless that I don't have to think about, like Vampire Saviors or something like that.
For me, I've got Indiana Jones and the Great Circle downloaded and installed, and I'm hearing good things from people I trust. However, I'm wondering whether these people I trust are also Bethesda acceptance gamers. I really dislike the buggy messes that tend to come out of Bethesda. I find it inexcusable when giant releases are incomplete. And I tried and did not like Starfield. And so I'm hesitant. But the voice acting and the clips and a lot of the reviews for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle seem pretty good. And I don't have to worry about playing it on the latest machine. I've got it on the Xbox Series X, so it should look pretty good.
I have not heard anything about bugs on that yet, but I haven't been paying close attention as I usually do. But I've not heard nothing but good things.
I have not heard anything about bugs either. And you would think that people would be making the same jokes. Like you think the
Yes.
troll YouTubers and the TikTok people that want the clicks would be getting the attention by the lowest common denominator and the low hanging fruit, right? But so far I have not heard anything either. So I am hopeful. And I've seen more clips. They weren't really spoilery or any kind of extended look. It was just like more cutscenes, more dialogue from Indy in the game. And Troy Baker did a very good job. I think it sounds a lot like him and seems true to character and true to like attitude in the series. And the other thing that I wasn't sure about, which is the first person nature of it, I would have thought it would have been closer to like a third person. But they were saying on Dropped Frames, which is a podcast I listen to, that the first person lends itself better to you feeling like Indy rather than you controlling Indy. And also that it's not a first person, or it's not a shooter / action game where like you're really killing a lot of people. Battle is not necessarily the first and foremost aspect of the game. It's a lot of puzzle solving and sneaking around. And that lends itself better in this case to first person, because like puzzle solving with like these temples and switches and levers and stuff is a little bit more engaging when it's a first person. Like you feel like you're there trying to solve the puzzle. This is the feedback that I was getting from somebody playing it. So I was like, okay, that sounds like it would be pretty good, because something that I don't like about first person battle sometimes is that I'm not a big fan of first person melee punching in first person. I don't find very satisfying. I'd much rather have a top down view or a third person over the shoulder view for stuff like that. I'm trying to think about games that would be like Dragon Age, I guess would be a good example. Or Mass Effect was over the shoulder, even though that's a shooter. It had some melee stuff going on, but Mass Effect was mostly a shooter. But any shooter that I've played that's been first person, I tend to stay away from the melee stuff. I don't find it as satisfying. James, do you have much time these days to play games, or are you all?
Yes and no. I'm mostly kind of occupied with the kids, but I do have a bit of time here and there. My game time lately has been really kind of spread out. Like I haven't focused on one game. I've been playing like a few things and progressing a few things a little bit. A lot of Minecraft, of course, with friends. I think the one that I'll probably spend maybe the most time with over Christmas is I've been playing the Doom 1 and 2 remastered collection that they put out. I think it was earlier this year. And it's more than just Doom 1 and Doom 2. They have like Doom 1, Doom 2, master levels for Doom 2. They did a new one, like a new chapter. They have all these fan packs in there as well. There's a lot of game there. And I only paid like not even $15 Canadian on PlayStation. And it has online multiplayer. So a friend and I have been playing online multiplayer on Fridays for a few hours. So that's been fun. If you don't like first-person shooters, you might struggle with this one because you can't look down. Because in the old Doom games there was no looking up or down, right? It was just left, right, and straight ahead, and so they kept that. Which you kind of would have to. You would kind of break the game, I think, otherwise. So you have to adjust to that. I spent more time earlier in the year playing games, and I had a few highlights off the backlog actually that I picked up. One of which was the Metroid Prime remaster that Nintendo did. I can't remember if I talked about this before, but I finally got around to playing it this year. That was another game that's relatively cheap. Nintendo games are notoriously expensive. This one was $50 Canadian, which is for a Nintendo game. That's actually pretty cheap. And they did a fantastic job remastering this game. It looks absolutely fantastic. If someone told you it was running at 1080p 60 on a Nintendo Switch, you would believe them. It's not. I think it's 900p at 60 frames a second. But it looks absolutely fantastic. And it's one of my favorite games as well of all time. So seeing it get that loving treatment was really nice. That was a real highlight of my game time this year, to the point where I actually played it twice, back to back. I did a normal run, and then when you beat it in normal mode, you unlock hard mode. So I immediately turned around and played it on hard mode. So I beat it twice in a month. But over the holidays, I don't know what I'm going to do too much in terms of games. I figured that out.
I have access to the Doom series, remastered sequels, everything on Xbox Game Pass, and there was one that I was going to try, but I don't remember the name of it. It was Doom. It was recent. It was like in the 2020s somewhere. What's the name of the most recent one?
Doom Eternal?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. It looked pretty modern. Like it looked like it was a pretty modern shooter. You could absolutely look up and down.
I've played Eternal. It looks fantastic. I think, with your TV setup, Joel, where you have like the one of those light strips that like tracks what's on your screen, it would work super well with that. However, I would recommend the one before it. I would go back and play Doom 2016 first. I really like Doom 2016. It's really lean. Whereas if you play Doom Eternal, it was pretty obvious that like, okay, the economics of modern games have seeped in a little bit. We got the microtransactions and instant
Oh,
free
I
to buy,
see. Right.
right?
Yeah.
Still a good game. Don't get me wrong. Still a great game. But whereas Doom 2016, it was like it was lean and it was mean and it was Doom in every sense of the word, and it was what it was, right? And it was really fantastic. So I would go play Doom 2016 first, and if you really like that, then give Eternal a try. And they're actually doing a new one.
Medieval or something?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember if it's coming out next year or not, but they are doing another one.
I used to play Unreal Tournament back in the day. Remember Chad and I used to log some hours on that. And I mean I liked it. There was no story. It was just like an arena shooter.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And I think it was one of the first games that took like some of the graphics that you would want in first person shooters to the next level. Because there was Doom, Quake, and then Unreal Tournament was the one that I really got into. I remember playing Doom, but I wasn't like a super fan. And then Chad and I rotated to, I want to say it was Call of Duty. Before Call of Duty was massive. It was like United Offensive or something. It was World War II stuff. And it was online multiplayer, large maps, vehicles, that kind of stuff. And that was really fun. But I've kind of lost my competitive gamer edge. I think the last time I was in anything competitive was Heroes of the Storm, which is a Blizzard MOBA. And I just don't have the time or interest, I guess, to dedicate myself to get really good at those. And as a result, when you play with friends that do have either the interest or time, you feel like you're holding up the team because you're not really pulling your weight. And so I found I got quickly eclipsed because at the time I was doing a lot of freelance art and I had to spend so much time working that I just couldn't spend a lot of time gaming. And I wasn't streaming at the time. And I wish that I had more competitive stuff and more time for that because there's a new Marvel Rivals that's out. It looks like a 5v5 team shooter.
It's sort of like Overwatch with Marvel characters.
Yeah, from what I can tell. But it's like it's a deep IP. There's lots of familiar characters. It's pretty cartoony. It looks like they're having a lot of fun with it. Like it's not super serious, and it looks like the kind of thing that I could get into from a kind of learn to play perspective. But at the same time, it's also a competitive thing where you're on a team, and if you're not eat, sleeping, and breathing these games when you've got like 400,000 people playing concurrently on Steam or something. Like just you feel like, or I feel the pressure that I'm getting left in the dust and I'm holding up the other people, especially when I don't have four other friends to play this with. So I'm going in with probably strangers, and then you're just like, okay, are they really like going to be cursing me because I don't know what I'm doing? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Like it's going to be my first day or my, your first match and that kind of stuff. And I have not played a lot of those types of games. I haven't played Valorant. I haven't played Overwatch. I haven't played anything like that. And it's much different than a MOBA. So what I need to do is load it up on Twitch and like maybe watch a couple people play just to kind of see whether it's even for me, because it's free to play. And so I'm curious about it, but I have not pulled the trigger to try to get into anything like that. I mean, Lou, I think that you mentioned before that you don't have a lot of time, but when you did play games, you were more of an indie gamer than you were like competitive gaming, right?
Yeah, I play a lot of indie stuff, and as you guys are talking, I'm trying to look at my list of what I've played in the last year and try to figure out anything I've finished, because lately I haven't finished anything. I'm playing a lot of Nintendo right now. Violet loves Mario, so I'm playing all the Mario stuff. But the other thing that, if you're into indie stuff, Dave the Diver is amazing.
I've heard that.
You'd think it's going to be something silly and stupid, and it is a little bit, but it's very compelling, and you'll find yourself next thing you start playing, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, I've been playing for 4.5 hours. Oh shoot, like the whole day's gone.
That was up for an award recently at the Game Awards, wasn't it? I think
Yeah.
it was.
And it was made by some small team out of Korea, I believe, and it's just, the premise is really silly. This guy used to be a fisherman or something like that, and his friend is trying to start up a sushi restaurant, and so you're brought to this cove, and you dive and you catch the fish, and then you give it to the sushi guys, and you help run the restaurant in the evening, and then you go back into the ocean, you catch fish, then you help them make sushi in the evening. And like that's pretty much the game. But then there's a plot along the way where you find out that there's like, there might be mermaids, and it's just silly, but it's very compelling.
There was a game that I was playing that was fish based on the Xbox. Not Melancholy Cove. It was Dredge is the other fishing one that was really kind of creepy. And this was Moonglow or something like that. And it was all about like bringing the right fish to the right neighbors and making friends. And it was really slow, which is why I didn't keep up with it. But it was kind of voxel graphics. Like it kind of felt not like Minecraft, but it sort of felt like those kind of, everything was kind of squared off and made to look really blocky. And it was still high res and still very pretty, but it was very, very tricky. And there was a lot of cooking mini games in it. And it wasn't really my vibe. Dave the Diver looks like it has like retro pixel graphics too.
Yep. And every time you think you know where that game's going, it goes someplace else, and it keeps adding content to the game. And you're like, there's even now they've teamed up with the team from Dredge, and apparently there's an add-on that adds a bunch of Dredge stuff to Dave the Diver. I beat it months and months and months ago, but I haven't played that. But I did play a little bit. There's a DLC package that's Godzilla, and you have to dive down into the ocean and find Godzilla.
Oh wow!
Like they've done some stuff. They keep putting stuff out for this, and it's very silly. Like you go down and you catch sharks or tuna or whatever, and you bring it back to the restaurant, and then you're running back and forth almost like a point like one of those old-fashioned arcade games. You're running back and forth filling orders, and then every once in a while the chef, who is supposed to be like the greatest sushi chef ever made, there's a critic coming. We need a fancy thing. And then you have to dive into the ocean and find specific fish for it. And when that happens, it becomes like a cooking mini game. But they only happen when there's a special guest. And it only happens like once a chapter, and there's like 8 chapters.
So the guys that I was watching on Drop Frames reacted like very positively to the trailer for the Dave the Diver expansion. So they obviously really loved the game. And my guess is that it has a pretty deep sense of humor too, Lou.
Yes. Oh, it's very funny.
Speaking of very funny, coming in to the Holiday Roundtable, we've got Ryan Murphy. Hello, sir.
Hello. Wow, I didn't think it'd be so quick, but I'm here.
You walked in and everybody kind of slowly looked at you. Late dude to the party.
I would say fashionably late, but I've got a hoodie on and there's stains on it. Cooking, just it's everywhere. So it's the end of the day.
You've got really good timing because we were just talking about a bunch of games we were either hoping to play or have been playing over the holidays. And so I figure you probably have a short list of things you want to get to over the holidays. So what's tops on the Ryan Murphy gaming list for the holiday season?
Usually when games come out in December, it's like, what are we doing here? This is the end of the year. It's usually non-existent in terms of games that have come out in the month of December. Although, I mean, for good reason too, because the game of the year type stuff usually wraps up end of November, and that's their picks. But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle actually launched early December, and it is fantastic. If you own an Xbox and you even just have a genuine interest in Indiana Jones, like I think that is a fantastic game. I've been loving it, and I'm not done yet. I've been playing it pretty much nonstop for the last couple weeks whenever I have time to play, and yeah, it's really good. Turns out Troy Baker does a pretty good young Harrison Ford impersonation.
That's fantastic news, man, because I was mentioning that on my list is installed and ready to go. I just have not had the
Oh, yeah.
time because I've been pre-recording podcasts for the last week, getting ready for the holiday break when Johnny and I take some time off. And one of the questions that I had, because I've heard great reviews from people I trust, and now I've heard a great review from you, which is fantastic, which means I will be playing it. But we were wondering if there's the Bethesda Bug Fest problem.
Oh, no. I mean, like I think there's been a couple of little patches here and there to address some lighting issues. And then there was some ray tracing stuff that they addressed after the early sort of access launch that they had. Like, if you buy the Ultimate Edition, you get 3 days ahead. But
Right.
it's mostly smoothed out now. I've not had any bugs. I did have a one checkpoint I had to recheck, but honestly, nothing on the scale of like Bethesda type bugs. This is even though it is Bethesda, it's actually Machine Games, the folks who did the Wolfenstein games,
Right.
the newer Wolfenstein games. So they're a different studio, but same publishing umbrella, I suppose. But it's all Xbox or Microsoft or whatever. But no, it's smooth, and I didn't have to choose between performance or what's the other one? I always choose performance. There's
Quality, I think is how they pitch
quality.
it. Yeah.
The good looking mode, high resolution, no quality. So it just runs like 60 frames a second. It's beautiful. It's a really pretty game, and it is Indiana Jones through and through. Even like red line going across a map, travel,
Nice.
fast travel. So it's got everything.
That's on my short list for sure. And I definitely need to spend some more time on the Xbox too, in terms of the holidays. Like I enjoy computer games and I have a hard time separating them from streaming and working. And so when I have a game that's on the computer, I tend to save it for a potential stream. Whether or not it sticks as something that's in my streaming roster is something else, but I tend to try things out on stream as just something different to do. But Xbox, I don't have a way to stream from the Xbox, nor do I want one. Like I kind of like that it's a separate thing. Gives me something to talk about on this show too. That's not like a TV or movie series. So I'm looking forward to that because I'm a big indie fan. I didn't like the latest film so much. It had some moments in it, but it wasn't my favorite.
I think for Indiana Jones fans of the original trilogy, this recaptures that original run really well and leaves the sequels, no, I don't want to say series, but the sequels they tried to do for good reason. I know they wanted to like revisit the character down the road, and I think this game is set right between um I'm trying to remember. Well, it's right between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. So it's kind of right in between those two films. And there are lots of references. So like if you're like really deep into the Indiana Jones lore, like you're gonna catch those little things. But if you're not, you don't really, you just need to know that's Indiana Jones and he does Indiana Jones things and you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about like whether you know what the Disney ride is or something
Right.
to get the little hints and stuff. It is really good. It's a first person sort of immersive sim exploration game where like there are areas that open up and you can kind of like progress at your own, free will. Like you can do the main campaign, you can do these little side quests they call field work that sort of unveil little parts of the story and build upon stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff to explore and collect and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great holiday game. Like you'll love it. You'll love it.
Nice. So I'm looking forward to it. That was on heavy rotation for me when I was younger because Indiana Jones, I think all three, the original three Star Wars, so episodes 4, 5, and 6, and one other film, maybe Dune from the 80s, were on beta cassette at my house growing up, out of order. So, like, to get to Return of the Jedi, you had to fast forward through Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so there was no way to tell because there was no timer on the VCR. You basically had to like stop it, play it, and go like, "Oh, that's the middle of the movie," and then play it again. It's like, "Oh, that's close to the end. I shouldn't fast forward for too much longer until you get to, like the credits." And like, "Okay, cool. If I leave it here, then Star Wars will start when the credits are done." And I remember just ended up watching them over and over again rather than fast forwarding through them. I used to just watch them to get through them. So I watched them a lot as a young guy, and then I would have gotten back into them again when everything kind of moved to DVD, like when you started to get like high def and like surround sound. I remember watching Raiders of the Lost Ark with Chad in his basement when we were teenagers with like subwoofers going and stuff, and that was fun, especially with the music. The score is just fantastic. I'm assuming that they have some poignant moments with the score in The Great Circle as well.
I don't think they got John Williams, but they definitely, have that Indiana Jones feel.
Nice.
The main theme and the swelling of the music during epic moments and quiet moments, and they capture the tone of the films as well. Like this, it can be serious when it needs to be serious. It can be funny when it needs to be funny. And there are these little moments that genuinely make you laugh out loud because Indiana Jones, when you think about it, he is kind of silly at times. I don't think he means to be, but he does some silly stuff. Anytime a snake's involved,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty slapstick. They have some fun with that, but it it takes itself serious enough that you can appreciate it. It doesn't feel like nuke in the fridge type moment or anything. They
Right.
don't go that far.
The Temple of Doom was a pretty funny movie.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you like Temple of Doom and Return of the Jedi. And when you're an adult, you like Raiders of the Last Ark and Empire Strikes Back. Like it's just the tastes shift just a little bit. So do you have anything on either your list or the list for the kids for Christmas video game related? Like are you picking up things for Nintendo? Like what tends to be the hot game this holiday season?
It's funny because like they had everybody's doing like a wrap up thing. And all the video game companies do it as well. And there was like the PlayStation, the Xbox, Steam, and Nintendo just launched theirs. And my Nintendo one is like woefully sad in comparison. I think like I'm waiting for the Switch 2. So this year has been very quiet on that front. But for the kids, we picked up Astrobot, wrapped it last night. It's under the tree. So they played. So at launch for the PS5, built into the system, there was this little demo thing, Astrobot's Playroom, and we played it with the kids and they loved it. So they finally got around to making like a full game, and that came out in September. So I picked that one up, and excited to play that one with the kids and pass the controller around. And it's more of like it's like a 3D platformer. It's actually very close to a Nintendo game. When you kind of look at it, you'll think it's basically a 3D Mario game, but has a lot of references to like old school PlayStation stuff. And um, yeah, we had a lot of fun with Playroom, so we're excited about Astrobot and playing that on the PS5 for Christmas. And I think on my list is Final Fantasy Rebirth. Fingers crossed that one is under the tree for me. It's top of the list. I somehow didn't get around to it at all this year, and I thought, you know what? I guess it's Christmas list time for that one.
So is that a remake, or is that like next in the sequence of however many Final Fantasy games there are?
So it's a sequel to the remake. So they originally announced they were remaking Final Fantasy VII. That turned out to be like a remake series where they reimagined it, and this is the second one. I never played the original. I know of like the general story for the original. I've seen the movies and all that stuff, but this my understanding is the remake is like a general telling with some different twists and turns. So, uh it'll be interesting. I really enjoyed the first one, so I'm looking forward to seeing how they follow it up.
And it's expected to be 3 games, I believe, because the original game was 3 discs.
Yes. Yeah, it's supposed to be a trilogy. They've already said they're hard at work on the third one. Um, it was well received. I think February is just now like it launched earlier this year in February. It's just such a busy time because all the games that get delayed from the fall land in February. So I can't remember what else was going on that month, but it was packed. Um, it usually is. I imagine it'll be similarly packed in 2025 as well.
I've never gotten into the Final Fantasy games. I know several people that are, but I've never been pulled in. And I know that a lot of people moved from World of Warcraft to the Final Fantasy Online MMO, but I didn't go down that road either. I guess I just didn't have time or felt that there wasn't a good jumping on point. It's going to be daunting to try to get into a series like Final Fantasy.
Well, Final Fantasy VII Remake was the first one that I like played and finished. And I think the beauty of the franchise is that you can pick and choose where you jump in. I wouldn't recommend the first one to be an MMO. Like that's a huge time sink. That's definitely not like my avenue. But to jump in on a reimagining of a beloved entry of the franchise with Seven, that's a really good starting point in my mind. But you can kind of jump in anywhere whenever you're ready. Like I played 16 this summer and really enjoyed it. Um, I think the struggle though is that it's exclusive to PS5, and it is on PC as well. So if you have a strong PC, you can run it on that hardware, but it's not on Xbox. That's the only thing. I know they're working on it. They're trying to work on it, but right now, PlayStation 5 exclusive for sure, console wise.
It runs on Steam Deck.
Oh, does it? Everything runs on the Steam Deck, which is great. Just a matter of like how much you're willing to. But I mean, some games run great on Steam Deck. Some games run on Steam Deck, and
Yes.
I've definitely noticed that verified badge like can sometimes be a bit of a not a stretch, but just it's like
Yeah.
this
Don't
is
try to
running.
play Control. Don't try to play Control.
Right, exactly. I think I sometimes if you try to play a game on Steam Deck and it is not supported, it just crashes the whole thing, which is the Steam Deck just says, "Yeah, no, this isn't happening." Which fair enough. I mean, it is a handheld with, lower specs than you would get in a PC with like a big graphics card in it, right? So it's not going to run everything. But Lou's right. It does have a lot of games optimized for it, for sure.
Unfortunately, both of my PCs, I was talking about this in the pre-show, are showing their age. So I don't have the latest, greatest streaming box right now. And my choices for video games for a computer are a little bit slimmer, especially as newer and newer games are released with higher fidelity graphics. My computer is just like, well, you can play it. You might not want to play it and stream it at the same time. It might be a bit of a slideshow. So I do have some issues there. So most of the time when I'm looking for like high graphic fidelity, I do go back to the Xbox. So it might not be for me, but I am hoping to branch out and try, some other games in the future. So I'll have to see what I can come up with. I'm not going to be picking up a handheld, but the first thing I need to replace is the desktop situation for content and podcasting, and then I'll look at getting a better video card. But I also find too that like with so much of my time streaming spent on games like Minecraft, and while I am playing a lot of Satisfactory right now, Minecraft is the dominant thing, which is of course with the other podcasts being about Minecraft as well. You can have, but don't need to have a super beastie computer to play Minecraft. So I've been able to kind of get away with, I think, a longer life out of the, what do I have? NVIDIA 1660, I think. Like it's an old video card and setup.
I mean, you'd be surprised like what a new video card can do to breathe new life into a older PC. I mean, these days a lot of video games are CPU bound, of course, like in terms of their performance, but a video card can sometimes unlock that, and then it can like kind of bridge the gap in terms of building a whole new computer. Like if you buy a video card, then wait a couple of years to build the rest of it.
I was looking into that, and I think my bottleneck is what video cards my motherboard will support.
Ah,
And
true.
it's not bad. Like I think I could get away with a decent upgrade, but I also have an issue right now with like the 32 gigs of RAM that I have in the computer is not supported by the motherboard, which I don't understand how that's a thing. But I had someone more knowledgeable inform me that basically I'm doing it wrong, and I was like, oh great. So I'm operating on like the teetering edge of like things not working very well. But a new video card might be a good interim if I can find like the right one to fit my needs. Because way back when Minecraft came out with RTX as like a test, they didn't really keep it up, and it's too bad because it looked really cool to have Minecraft with ray tracing around it. But I couldn't get into it, and I was living vicariously through Johnny, who had an RTX card for the release of Minecraft RTX, but I couldn't play it and report on it for the podcast because I couldn't do it on the system. So I didn't really get into buying a card just for that reason. And so as a result, there's a bunch of other games that just don't, they would push my system too much. And I was saying earlier to the guys that I've not really gotten into competitive gaming. Like I was looking at Marvel Rivals and even something like Path of Exiles 2, which looks really fun, but also looks pretty hard. And my competitive spirit when it comes to gaming, even when it's like PvE, I'm just not that aggressive about it. Like I would prefer a little bit more of a lean back experience. I think the most, we'll say, competitive I would get, or the game that I feel the most compelled to do well in recent years would be Borderlands. Borderlands 3, I think, was the last time I was like, okay, I'm beating this level. Like I really want to beat this boss. I think some of that is the writing, because like sometimes the people that you're fighting are real asshats and the dialogue for them is like you get angry and you really want to end them. But I've not had an experience in a video game in a long time when I was like really competitive about it and felt the need to like upgrade gear in the machines to play a specific game, because I don't do a lot of online multiplayer anymore either. So we were talking before you got here about the movies and things that we might be watching over the holidays. Do you guys have any family traditions that's on the short list for movies, or do you have any favorites that you are forcing upon the family this Christmas?
For me, it's funny because I haven't been able to like find exactly what all three of my kids want to watch for the holidays. We were pretty close with Nightmare Before Christmas, which the kids call "This Is Halloween." So when they chant "This is Halloween," that's what they want to watch. But it's funny. We just watched. Folks might remember this, but does anyone remember All of the Other Reindeer? It was a Matt Groening produced show, TV movie from the 90s, well, 1999. And it was a big deal when I was a kid because it was like, oh, the guy who did The Simpsons is producing this Christmas show. It's CG animated, but it's like got a very specific style. Like they took the book, the kids' book, and like just transported it to a movie, the art style, which is like a tough sell because it kind of like has a very specific art style. But anyways, we watched that just tonight with the kids because I was like, I haven't seen it in years, and I remember it being like really weird and but like a different kind of story. It's on YouTube. I just searched it up on YouTube because of course it's not streaming on anything because it's this incredibly old thing, but it holds up. The kids really enjoyed it. Once they realized, like, they kept asking when's the reindeer going to show up, and I'm like, well, that's the story. It's a dog that becomes the other reindeer. You just got to give it 5 minutes or so for it to get going. But they got there, and it was a lot of fun. And a lot of top tier voice acting. I think Drew Barrymore is all of the reindeer, and you've got the voice of Homer Simpson is like the mailman. I think his name's Dan
Castellaneta.
You got it. There it is. I knew Lou would have that one. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure. It was good. It was worth the watch. I mean, it's on YouTube. Just search all of the other reindeer, and it pops right up. And it's got like 2.5 million views. It's been up there for 10 years. I don't think anyone cares anymore that it's there. Like it hasn't been taken down, but it was fun and it was different. Is different. It was weird to watch something from the late 90s because like it is definitely that. It is definitely late 90s.
I wonder what it is about Christmas movies that people tend to gravitate to the classics, ones that they've seen before, even though they've seen them 100 times, compared to newer Christmas movies. And it's so rare that a new Christmas movie or TV special breaks into the annual vernacular of the masses. Like I think the last time that happened was maybe Love Actually, and not everywhere. Like that's very much like a North American thing where Love Actually has become like a go-to Christmas film. And I don't know what it is about the newer Christmas movies that just feel like they're too hokey or they're too manufactured, and it just doesn't feel as genuine a story. Some of the animated ones are pretty good. I mentioned Prep and Landing earlier tonight. Those are more modern, and I find that they're pretty good. But I'm hard pressed even right now to think of like a newer cartoon or a newer animated Christmas special that I always hear talked about. I mean, the ones that get tossed around at the Christmas parties that I go to are like the old Rankin Bass, like Rudolph's Red-Nosed Reindeer, the stop motion ones. And what was the other one that they did? Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I think was another one.
Yep, that is not aged well. I just watched that actually.
Yeah, some of them do not age very well at all. Those are the ones that we tend to gravitate to. In my family, the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is probably the one that most people think of as like the one that they would watch every year. And I still enjoy it despite disliking Chevy Chase now. Still like that movie and still like him in it. But I have no time for Chevy Chase in anything modern. Like I don't particularly enjoy him. But back then, like it was just, there's something about that film that they nailed it on all fronts. And I think maybe it's because it's an ensemble cast. Like it's not just him. He's in it a lot, but there's a lot more going on than just Chevy Chase in that movie. Well, we can move on into the Internet Minute, which is, of course, brought to you by you, dear listener. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you're getting value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Joining at any level will get you an invite into the member-only Discord server where you can listen to things like this live. We record live every week in a special channel that you have access to. We also have some bonus Barista Cut audio when we have extended versions of the podcast. That's also available to our patrons. Special thanks to our Bean Counter patrons, Cosmic and Smurf588. Thank you so much for your support on this episode and your support throughout this entire year. I really, really appreciate it. The patron count is at 23, which is steady on from the last time we recorded. If you would like to be patron number 24, visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. And speaking of video games and the Game Awards that happened recently, my pick this week is a video game. It's called Kyora. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Kyora. And to quote the Steam page, it is from the creators of the multi-award-winning mini sandbox Core Keeper comes the all-new mystical multiplayer adventure. Cross into a realm of ruins where every pixel is a tool to create something new. Mine precious resources, craft physics-altering wands, take on powerful bosses, and build your base by terraforming the world around you. And it looks like a cross between Core Keeper and Terraria, both of which are pixel-based games. They're pretty low resolution as far as the pixel density, but they're both rendered in Unreal Engine 5. So the lighting is really cool and has a lot of depth to it, despite being a flat 2D side-scroller game. Core Keeper is top-down, and this one, Kiora, is a side-scroller thing. I've not played Terraria, but I've seen bits of it, and it does seem to be very Terraria-like. I have mentioned this earlier, and I'm on the fence. It looks like a lot of fun. The characters for me feel particularly simple. I understand this is coming from someone that plays Minecraft, where the characters are basically boxes, but I'm first person in Minecraft. I don't really look at my character that much. I don't treat Minecraft like a RPG. Minecraft for me is basically a palette, a digital Lego sandbox to play around in. And I've thought about getting into Core Keeper, but whenever I look at the graphics for Core Keeper, I always think like, this looks like Nintendo Entertainment System level pixels. And they would get me if they would bump it up to Super Nintendo. Like, I played the original Nintendo. I had it for a couple of years. I really like it. There's a lot of nostalgia. But for me, the heyday of my video game youth was Super Nintendo. And I find that a lot of these pixel retro games, they just don't get close enough to the vibrancy that I remember from Super Nintendo to really pull me on board. So I feel like this might be something to look at, or at least keep your eyes on. I believe it's going to go into early access in 2025, but you can wishlist it on Steam. We'll have a link in the show notes, and I would highly recommend people at least check it out. The trailer looked pretty fun. Lou, have you seen this at all?
I have not. I've been trying to not type so loud so that I can try and look it up.
Ryan, were you familiar with Kiora?
No, I wasn't, but I'm trying to look at Core Keeper. I do like the publisher. Chucklefish publishes a lot of good stuff, and I know Core Keeper has kind of popped up before. Oh, it's interesting. So Core Keeper just came out this year. It must have been in early access for a while. So they've already announced like their next project then. Hey, that's kind of cool.
Core Keeper, when it went to 1.0, I believe also went to console and is part of Game Pass.
Oh, interesting.
I haven't tried it on Game Pass. I probably should. My hesitation was, this is the kind of thing that not only me, but also my audience on Twitch would enjoy, because I have such a Minecraft following on Twitch. And so I thought, like, it goes on sale on Steam for $14 every now and again. I should probably just buy it on Steam and then try it on live on Twitch. I could just, instead of forking over the money for it, I could give it a go on Xbox and kind of see whether or not I like it. I may also prefer playing with a keyboard and mouse, or I may prefer a controller. I don't know. And that would also be a good thing to try on Xbox. But for folks that are looking at Core Keeper, is like, well, if they're interested in Kiora, they want to try Core Keeper. If you do have an Xbox and you do have access to Game Pass, then it's available there. Steven, what's your pick this week?
Probably seems like it's a little bit out of left field, but I've been over the years just toying with the idea of trying to learn Korean, and just in the past half a year, I guess, I've been really trying to get back into it. And I have the book that I would recommend. It's called Hangul Master, and it's essentially a book on how to write Korean from the folks at talktomeinkorean.com. And I bought it, realized I bought it probably almost 6 years ago, and kind of went through it most of the way the first time, and it gets you used to the letter shapes and then the writing order, and then the latter half of the book is all about sort of interpreting handwriting. And I didn't really think at the time that was super useful, and then this time I decided to go through the book again and make sure I did that part of it, and boy, did I do myself a disservice the first time by not doing it, because it's one thing to learn how to read the font, the same way that if you're reading Helvetica, it's very specific, clean, legible typefaces. But this book, it's interesting how, as letters fall apart when people write quickly, if you pay attention to and follow the proper stroke order, even something that looks like the English letter, uppercase letter R, or looks like the number 12 if you write it quickly, you know that that's actually the Korean M sound. Either way, I mean, I could dork out and get into all kinds of stuff. I'd be like a white belt in karate trying to explain how awesome this is, and not really be able to do it justice. But it's this book, it's called Hangul Master by the folks that Talk to Me in Korean, and it's a great starting point to get you used to the alphabet. It's really good.
So you speak English and French, right? And you're going for Korean. Like that's awesome. I barely speak English and I do it for a living. Out of curiosity, like why Korean?
Okay, Netflix. There's a little stint of time where on Netflix I was just trying to watch different animes that seemed pretty interesting, and it kept recommending the show called Black, and it would just show the thumbnail, Asian actors on it. I'm like, yeah, I know. Watching Japanese cartoons, you're recommending a Japanese show. I get it. And so, but it kept coming up, and eventually I just said, all right, I'll try this. And it was a really unique show about grim reapers and spirits after people pass away and stuff, and had never really seen anything like it. And at one point, I wasn't paying close attention, but at one point they sort of panned the camera over to the police station, and I was like, those aren't Japanese characters. What the heck is this? And so had no idea it was a Korean show because ears weren't tuned. Like I wasn't listening to how people were speaking versus the alphabets on the signs and things like that until that one moment, and then looked it up, and just the idea that Korean was essentially an oral language up into the 1400s, and only the upper class were able to write it, but they wrote it using Chinese characters. And then Sejong the Great basically said, I want all of my people to be able to read and write, and develop this. Yeah, the idea of developing an alphabet based on the spoken language as opposed to having one like English that's just morphed over centuries and centuries and centuries of letter shapes to create something that's not phonetic at all, but the Korean alphabet is phonetic based on the way people have spoken for hundreds of years. It was, either way, caught my interest, and yeah, again, I could dork out on this.
No, that's cool.
But, it'd be just me pontificating about Korean for a long time, but it's good. It's cool.
Korean is very popular right now. My wife watches nothing but Korean dramas, and she's obsessed with K-pop. So it's in my house. My kid is singing Korean songs. I have no idea what she's saying, but okay.
That's great.
It's one of I haven't been able to kind of get into the K-pop thing. Not that I'm opposed to it, and someone that when I hear it, on a radio or in a playlist recommendation, I'll listen to it. But I don't know. There's something about Korean shows where they seem to be done differently. And in North American shows, if they're going to have a love triangle, there's drama. But in the Korean show, if there's sort of a love triangle that looks like it's going to be budding, it like building up, it doesn't really necessarily take root, and somebody's just either way, the way that it's resolved, there's not always bad blood, but somebody's left heartbroken, and it's just like the way we do things in North America, it's just done differently there, and it's just
their storytelling is very different.
And maybe because it's different, it's what draws me in. But it's just from the ones I've seen, they're so good. So it's like I've not been disappointed by any of the shows I've watched yet. So yeah, and I don't. It's funny because I don't feel like I necessarily have a goal for learning Korean. Like I'm not going to South Korea. I'm not planning on writing, or I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I'm learning just out of the sheer interest of the alphabet, and then hopefully get to the point where I can watch Korean shows without needing the subtitles. But that's about it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like I'm a bit of a slow reader, so I don't enjoy subtitles, and so I don't tend to watch a lot of foreign media because I find I'm missing a lot of the acting while I'm looking at the bottom of the screen reading. And it would be awesome to pick up a language and then be able to watch all of the content that's in that language and not have to have subtitles. Like that would be a very cool experience. And I've not thought about that as a motivation to then learn another language, or as a way to help you learn another language. Like as you're in the process of learning Korean, like watching Korean dramas would probably, I'm assuming, help you in terms of context and understanding and pronunciation. And I mean, I imagine the tricky part would be probably the speed at which people are talking and catching up, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the plugin right now, but I found one that I want to try, which basically allows you in Chrome, when you've got that plugin running, you can watch a show in Netflix and it will put dual subtitles. So it'll do the English subtitles and and in this, for my case, Korean subtitles right underneath it. So you can watch it, but then see it in both languages. So you know what, basically how the two languages relate to each other. So I'm hoping to heavily play around with that in the new year.
That's a really cool idea because I know like our kids are in French immersion and the teachers always saying they need to practice their French at home. They need to immerse themselves. And I always say like, we have this next Netflix subscription. We can always just switch it to French voice and English subtitles, but it would be really neat to have like both the French and English subtitles running at the same time and like doing simple stuff. So it wouldn't necessarily be like a drama show. It'd be like a kids cartoon that they're watching, or maybe they've watched multiple times. But like I've always felt like it's this untapped resource, all these streaming platforms where you can change the language to whatever you want. Sometimes that's a detriment. I know the kids have accidentally switched Peppa Pig into Mandarin a couple times, but it happens.
Yeah, and my French teacher explained that if you can get to the point where you can watch a French show with French subtitles, so that you're hearing it, but then you're also seeing the words that, like, visually seeing the words that match the audio that's coming out. It's a nice way to actually step up your French level as well. So doing just that with the English and French, so it's easier for your kids at that age to see them both while the audio's on, would be pretty beneficial, probably.
Yeah. We didn't do this with the kids, although Lou and I watched Daryl Dixon 2 seasons where he was in France,
Mm.
and a lot of the characters are speaking French. Although, of course, they say, "Oh, you're American. I speak English." Like everyone speaks English eventually, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of surprisingly a lot of spoken French. Like I was really impressed that they didn't completely just have everybody speak English for whatever random reason. There's a lot of native French speaking folks in the show, so it was a nice touch. But yeah, like we were kind of experiencing that over the last couple of years, and it was really neat. It was really cool to see.
James, I think you had a pick as well.
Yeah, I've got a internet miniseries I'll recommend. This is one we've talked about privately, Joel. It's the Reboot Rewind documentary series. So
Right.
for folks who are of a certain age, they may remember the computer animated TV show Reboot from the 90s, early 2000s. And just this year, they did a really nice documentary series talking about the history of the show. It's 8 parts. They're all a half an hour plus. They got just about everyone you could want to have interviewed for the series. They really got everybody. And what I found in particular fascinating, the first couple episodes kind of talk about before Reboot. So the guys who originally conceived of the show, they were all British guys working in the British animation industry, and they spend a lot of time, especially in the first episode, talking about the state of the technology for animation and computer animation in the 80s through to the early 90s, and just watching that shift and them kind of conceiving of the idea of doing a fully computer animated TV show. It was really interesting. So that's my pick. If you have time over the holidays, it'd be a fun holiday watch. I think, like I said, 8 episodes.
I remember Reboot. I don't know if it would hold up if I went back to rewatch it, but I thought it was super cool at the time. And honestly, I think that would have been in the house that I grew up in. Like I think that would have been even before the first time I moved. It's one of the things I think that got me really interested in animation. I was always more of a Disney fan because I was always more of a pencil to paper kind of kid. But I do remember Reboot being the gateway drug into Beast Wars. Shadow Raiders was the other one that was really big. But that didn't even get big until I think I was in university. Like that came later, I think.
Yeah, Shadow Raiders came a little later. There's a YouTube channel that shows all the Reboot episodes on repeat, back to back to back.
Oh, wow.
So if you're interested in revisiting, you can. And the other thing too, there's a project going on right now to like restore the Reboot episodes in their original quality, because the super high level, I'm sure we're going to butcher this, but like the tapes that the original like masters for Reboot were on were these like really weird kind of like proprietary kind of tapes. But the image quality was super high. And there's a project underway right now to try and like restore all these and preserve them. And it's really fascinating because they're these special tapes, you need a special player. And of course, it's 2024, and physical media is on the way out. And I shouldn't say that. It's actually coming back a little bit, but you understand what I mean. Like trying to find these players is really hard, and so these folks are scrambling to take pieces from various different players and cobble them together to get a working one, so they can restore the episodes. And I think they posted the first episode fully restored from the master tape on YouTube, and the difference is just night and day. Like, it looks so good in the original quality. So that's something else to look for if you're interested in the show.
I would definitely want to go back and check out the quality difference, because that would have been all happening before I got into animation, like before I worked in TV in the early 2000s. All of that would have happened long before. And by the time I was working in TV, everything was digital. Like we were just sending files to production companies and stuff like that. So I would have not had the experience of having anything go from CG to any kind of tape, archival or not. That was just not a thing that happened as far as I remember when I was working in TV. But I mean, it wasn't so far before that though that it would have, because some of my instructors in animation school, they would have shot their original paper animation and filmed it. So it was very quickly around the time that I got into animation is when everything went digital. And it was because I remember a lot of people in the industry were like trying to learn that shift after they had learned professionally how to do it the old fashioned way. But I, going through school, had learned it like the modern kind of media way. So it was interesting to see that in the workplace when you're kind of met with like both sides of the coin. Well, that wraps up this episode and this year on the Citadel Cafe. You can get more information about the show, links to some of the things that Stephen, myself, Ryan, Lou, and James have talked about on this episode at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com or find the show by name on social media. Subscribe for free on all of the major podcasting platforms. That includes YouTube. It's not a video, but you can at least listen on YouTube. Really, anywhere you get a podcast, you can find the Citadel Cafe. The RSS feed for the show and the show notes are available on our website. Word of mouth is the easiest way to support the show. Just tell a friend about the Citadel Cafe and where they can go to listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find links to everything that I am up to online at joelduggan.com. That includes a link to my other podcast about Minecraft, The Spawn Chunks. TheSpawnChunks.com is where you can find that. I'm Joel Duggan on social media and Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I stream Tuesday through Saturday. Most days I'll be taking some time off over the holidays, of course, to spend some time with family. But you can look for Minecraft, Satisfactory, and the occasional Lego stream over at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. Folks, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. This has been a lot of fun. I will have links for everyone who has been on the show tonight on our website, thecitadelcafe.com. You can find Stephen at StephenESC on your favorite social media platform. Lou is Busy Zombie Lord and is also part of Zombies Ate My Podcast, along with Ryan Murphy, who is R Murphy on Twitter. And Ryan, I'm going to get you to read off your podcast that you're involved in, because we know that you do a lot.
You mentioned Zombies Ate My Podcast. Lou and I chat every other week. I also do the Gamers In, a podcast I do with Jocelyn, and we have our Game of the Year episode coming up at the end of the year. We're actually going to record that one live, first time in a while. And also Dungeons and Diapers, which is a parenting / geek culture podcast. So if you like TCC, it's kind of like that, although we always end the show with a topic focused around family. And we are recording our annual award show, which my co-host Crofton coined. It's the Daddies. So don't Google it, but it is an award show that we do. It's our fourth one. And lots of fun categories, including best anime. So you're going to want to tune in for that.
Alastair unfortunately had to work late, but you can find his work at longrangesensors.com. And James the Civilian is nowhere and everywhere. He's like the wind. As always, I really appreciate you all taking the time to record with me tonight. The Holiday Roundtable is always a lot of fun. And I appreciate the time to record during the year. It's been a good deal of fun and interesting conversations over the last few months, talking about everything from series on Netflix, the movies that we love and hate. All that kind of stuff has been a blast. And thanks to everyone that's listening to the podcast over this year and over the last several years. We celebrated 13 years in November. I still tickle myself that this is part of my job. It's a very cool thing to be able to do this, and I really appreciate it. You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.